Hello everybody, this is Miss Gail from the Boulder City Library bringing you another Draw a Story. Today's Draw a Story is called Farmer Rutabaga. Farmer Rutabaga was a very good farmer. Here's his field and here's his house. Every day he went from his house to his field and walked about to make sure everything was as it should be on his farm. One morning he came to the end of the long field here, and he made an exciting discovery. Growing in the ground there at the end of the field was a huge turnip, the biggest turnip that Farmer Rutabaga had ever seen. The turnip was growing in the ground, but Farmer Rutabaga knew what it was because of the shape and color of the leaves that were growing above the ground. Farmer Rutabaga was very pleased. Turnips were his favorite food in the whole wide world. He loved boiled turnips, baked turnips, fried turnips, and turnips in a soup. He loved turnip salad, turnip pancakes, turnip cookies, and turnip ice cream. So naturally, he grabbed onto the leaves and started to pull to get that turnip out of the ground. He pulled and pulled and pulled, and the turnip didn't budge. I am going to need some help, thought Farmer Rutabaga, and he ran back to the farmhouse, right over here. To get his wife. Farmer Rutabaga grabbed onto the leaves. Mrs. Rutabaga latched onto his belt, and they started to pull. They pulled and they pulled and they pulled, and the turnip didn't budge, not one bit. "We need more help," said Mrs. Rutabaga. "I'll go and get Rosie." Their daughter, Rosie Rutabaga, was feeding the ducks over by the pond, right over here. She was happy to come and lend a hand. Farmer Rutabaga grabbed onto the leaves. Mrs. Rutabaga latched onto his belt. Rosie got a good hold on her mother's apron strings, and they started to pull. They pulled and they pulled and they pulled, and the turnip didn't budge, not one little bit. "We need more help," declared Rosie. "I'll go and get the horse." The horse was eating grass in the meadow with the cow, right here. Rosie ran to that meadow. The horse was happy to come and help. The horse and Rosie went back to the field. They tied one end of the rope around the horse and the other end around the leaves on the giant turnip. Farmer Rutabaga, Mrs. Rutabaga, and Rosie all grabbed onto the rope as well. They pulled and they pulled and they pulled. That was one stuck turnip. "We need more help," said the horse. "I'll go and fetch the cow." And he headed off, clippity-cloppity, clippity-cloppity, all the way back to the meadow. But when he got there, the cow was gone. "Maybe she went back to the barn," said the horse. "Here's the barn, right about here." So he went to check. Clippity-cloppity, 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 all the way to the barn. The cow was there all right, fixing up her stall and sweeping hay out all over the place. She was also happy to help out, so the two of them took the shortcut back to the field. But even with the cow helping, they couldn't begin to move that turnip. "We need more help," said the cow. "I'll go and fetch the chickens." Farmer Rutabaga owned about 40 chickens who lived in the chicken house right next to the farmhouse, right about here. The cow brought back the chickens, and everyone got a hold on the rope. The farmer, the farmer's wife, their daughter, the horse, the cow, and the chickens. They started pulling. They pulled and they pulled. They rested up and pulled even more. But it wasn't helping at all. It was looking pretty hopeless. "We need more help," said Farmer Rutabaga. "Professional help. I'm going to go and see Old Codger. Old Codger knows everything that there is to know about things agricultural." So Farmer Rutabaga headed off down the road to Old Codger's house, right about here. He told Old Codger the story, and then he said, "Now, Old Codger, I've got a question for you. How am I going to get that turnip out of the ground?" Old Codger thought for a bit. Then he said, "You need some help." "No, I don't think that's the answer," said Farmer Rutabaga. "I've got lots of help. I've got my wife and daughter and the horse and the cow and a whole flock of chickens." At that point, a small voice could be heard from over in the corner saying, "I'll help." Farmer Rutabaga looked over and saw a tiny little mouse there. "That's a kind offer, Mouse," he said, "but I don't think someone small as you would be of much help." "Now, don't be so hasty," Old Codger said. "You never know when you might find good help in unexpected places. Farmer Rutabaga, you go back home. You and your family and all your animals be waiting out in that field tomorrow morning. You might get a surprise." So Farmer Rutabaga headed home. Early the next morning, they were all standing by the turnip, waiting. Suddenly, they heard a loud sound behind them. Vroom, vroom, and they turned around. And what did they see coming across the field? A tow truck. And who do you think was driving that tow truck? Well, if you guessed a little mouse, you were right. That little teeny tiny mouse with that little teeny tiny voice was driving that big old tow truck. He backed it up to the turnip, let down the hook, and hooked it onto the leaves that were growing out at the top of that turnip. He pressed a lever and pop! Out came the turnip. They took that turnip back to the house, washed it off, chopped it up, and had themselves a turnip feast. And the guest of honor was the little mouse. The end.